we're talking about the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, the decision to hold the Fed fund rate. The market seems to be pricing in maybe one more increase before the end of the year. The Federal Reserve, the FOMC committee, that is, meets next on October 31st and November 1st. Then they have another meeting December 12th and the 13th. So there's quite a bit of time here between now and the next meeting. There's obviously going to be some jobs reports and some inflation reports that are going to be critical to be factored into those decisions. Inflation on the last reading was a little bit higher than we wanted to see, but on the grand scale, inflation is going into the right direction overall, and hopefully that'll continue. Hopefully we'll get some good numbers between now and October 31st. Certainly don't want to see one more rate hike if we can help it. But also the market's got to get comfortable with the fact that, this is going to be a situation where unless we go into a recession, you've got higher rates for longer. That's the Fed fund rate, of course. That's 10-year, it looks like, higher for longer unless we go into a recession. And then the 30-year fixed mortgage, which follows that 10-year closely. Really ending the week, depending on personal situation, upwards of 7.5. There's certainly scenarios where we could get up over 8%. But the Mortgage Banker Association projection of getting to 6, which they upped to 6.4 in the last 30 days for the end of the year. I think they're just trying to save face. In the next 30 days, will probably be up to 7. That certainly seems very, very bullish, and they're the most bullish on that. Seems kind of like a reach at this point, but we are a long way away from talking about, outside of a really deep and fast recession and break in the job market, we are a long way from even talking about 5% on 30-year fixed mortgages. So this is the market moving forward. The longer this wears on the market, the more likely you will start to see some resistance on price, which prices have been stubbornly at peak despite the rise in rates. Now, transactions have plummeted because this buyer pool has shrunk. We're at the most unaffordable time for buyers in history, 2,600 plus average mortgage payment in the last 30 days. And that's before it bumped back up to 7.5. So it's probably even higher. We'll get another probably number next week. And so this is something that sellers here in Connecticut, Chaz, have got to consider. If they're thinking about 2024, they've got to consider their timetable personally, obviously personal situation. There's a lot of strategy that goes into coming up with the right time to actually list the home and get the most value and how to position it. And as long as the inventory stays low, relatively speaking, they're going to be in a good spot here. But there might be some resistance here on price. We've certainly seen that in demand with buyers not being in as many multiple offer situations. But what's the team experiencing right now on getting buyers into a less competitive offer situation right now?
So that's actually a great point that you brought up, because we did the number show a few weeks ago, and since then I've been looking at the hot sheets on a daily basis, and you are starting to see properties go for at asking and or slightly under, and then the number of price reductions has also gone up as well. So that, throw any number up there and just you're going to get it no matter what. What I've actually been talking to my crew of people that I support over here at the One Team is that a lot of buyers, let's say they have a $400,000 buying power, they've lowered their search to like 349 to be able to bid up, or to have that leverage with the higher interest rates. So talking to your sellers saying, hey, we need to price here if we know we're going to get up here, because people's buying power has come down. They can't look at, their buying power used to be 425, so they could look at $400,000 houses and maybe still compete in that range. So the mindset has had to shift into everyone now needs to price a little bit lower so that they can still create some of that competition with the buyer demand that's out there. Otherwise, you're starting to see some houses sit for 38, 45, 50, 60 days on the market. There's one house I showed They've been on the market 44 days, and they've come down $80,000 from where they originally started because they hadn't had a single offer on the table yet. So the strategy now is
That speaks to the affordability issue.
exactly.
You'll hear people say, "Oh man, sales are down." Well, sales are down. They're
Right.
They're down over 30% from like where we were peaking out in early 22 or 21 on a seasonally adjusted basis. And people will say, "Well, the sales are down because we have no inventory." Not true. We have more inventory right now than we did during the very beginning of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, meaning we sold more homes with less inventory then because more people could afford to buy homes.
Right.
So it's the affordability that is having the biggest impact on crashing sales, because if we were selling, as a nation, we were selling over 6 million homes seasonally adjusted in the beginning of 2022. Now that number's down to all the way down. National Association of Realtors just reported down to 4 million, 4.04. This week they reported that for the last 12 months, seasonally adjusted. So we've got more inventory. So it's the affordability.
Absolutely. I have a set of buyers. Actually, we were just fortunate enough we got under contract, and when I first started working with them, their buying power was $325,000, but then their rate lock expired, and when they had to go back and look at it, it brought them all the way down to $275 because they were locked in at a 6, and now they're at a 7.5.
Yeah, and every buyer that got in 2022 that got the advice, just buy the house and you can refinance later. The good news is if you had 6% in 2022, you're well below today's rate, but you're not refinancing anytime soon.
Not even close.
And so that was we weren't giving that advice out. We were very cautious about that type of advice. I mean, the reality is, at some point you'll probably, just historically speaking, be able to refi. But for those that were misled into thinking, in a year I'll just refi this thing, you can be waiting a long time to be able to do that. On the flip side, where are the opportunities in this market? For those that can afford the mortgage payment on the buy side right now, for the first time since February of 2020, you're starting to see more opportunities as a buyer. So if you can afford to buy a house and on a 10-year cycle, if you're gonna, and that's the average, it's up over 10 years for the average homeowner in Connecticut, to hold their property. If you're buying on a 10-year cycle, you're going to be just fine with the value. And so for those that can afford the monthly payment right now, still, because they've got great income, they got a great job, whatever their personal situation is, I know that pool's gotten smaller, but for those that are in that pool, they're going to have the best opportunity in the fourth quarter of this year to negotiate, to have less competition, to get the property of choice, to not feel rushed, to not have an anxious experience. It is going to loosen up for those buyers, and that's an opportunity and good news for them. And if you're planning on obviously putting yourself in that position, you can certainly reach out to myself and Chaz and have a conversation. Chaz at oneteamct.com or Byron at oneteamct.com about how to position yourself to take advantage of what I believe in the fourth quarter of this year in particular is going to be the best winter of opportunity for buyers and investors alike.
Well, and it's like you always tell us on the team, right? It's like if you're looking to make a big purchase, or if you can kind of see the writing on the wall that rates are not going to change for a little while, where can you trim the fat in your daily life to maybe increase some of your buying power, or, refinance a car, or, no money down on a credit card? Do whatever you can to free up some more cash so that you can go out and make that home purchase, so that in 5 years, 7 years down the road, now you're in a much stronger position overall and as a family, just by reducing, how many times do we go out to eat? How many streaming services do we need? And all of those other types of variables. So take a look at your own personal budget and realize, if I need to, where can I find an extra couple $100s a month to be able to go out and get the home that I actually want, so that in the long run, I'm going to reap the benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, even in Connecticut here, when we had a really rough stretch there after the great financial crisis more than other states. But, even in Connecticut on a 10-year run in single family housing, you're going to do quite well on that investment. And obviously, as a homeowner, you get the utility, the use of the property, and then the paying down of the debt and forced savings. So many advantages, obviously, to that, as opposed to just kind of quitting on that dream and being a renter long term.